Whether you run a small company or a multi-billion-dollar bank, leading from a place of care and positivity will always pay the biggest returns. Today, I have with me someone whose background shows just how powerful this leadership style can be. David Provost is an incredible story of entrepreneurship from a young age to leading some of the largest banks in the country and the impact that giving back can have on educating the future. David, it is so nice to have you. So first what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you are doing today, and then we'll go back and we'll start from the beginning and build ourselves back up.
Great, thanks. Good to be here. So David Provost, you asked me what my title was, which is an interesting question. So I am the retired CEO of TCF Financial. TCF Bank was sold to Huntington Bank in 2021, and I decided to retire at that time, took a consulting job with Huntington Bank, even though they've never called me to consult. But the pay is pretty good.
But you're there, just in case. There's a lot of superheroes that live by that same thing.
Good, yeah. So that has been spending my last 3 years in various charities around the city.
That's incredible. That's great. So I want to build up to the charities. I do want to talk about those. I'm actually going to earmark that for us. But let's start back at the very beginning. So when we talk about who is David Provost, that starts at a very young age. So talk to me about what it was like as a child, what your parents were doing, and what that looked like morphing all the way into today.
Right. So I won the parent lottery. I was born in Daegu, Korea. My parents were missionaries. My mother was born in Korea. My grandparents were missionaries, and my great-great-grandfather was a missionary in China in 1840s. So I come from a long line of missionaries. My father took a church in Mackinac City when I was in junior high school, so that allowed us to move to the United States. And it was very interesting growing up in Mackinac City when my first language was Korean. A lot of things were happening if you could think about it. First time I saw a television set, first time I saw a football game, basketball game. But it was a great place to grow up, and we can talk a little bit about
that's incredible.
The career in Mackinac City.
Yeah. So really quick, put a time frame on this. What year are we talking that you landed in Mackinac City?
So that was in 1965.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of things happened in the world even at that time. So that's a big culture shock to go from a very different world into Mackinac City of all places.
Right.
So now you're in Mackinac City. How long are you there?
So I'm there for junior, senior high school. Went to college, Alma College. My parents stayed in Mackinac City for 19 years before they retired.
Okay.
So I always consider Mackinac City my Michigan home. Went to Alma College on a Presbyterian scholarship.
Okay.
Alma College is Presbyterian. My parents were Presbyterian ministers, so I got the scholarship, which I'm always thankful for. And I always remember that. And Alma College, that scholarship, I think, paid dividends to them. So it was really fun being able to get an education. I saw the value of an education. I was the one of only a few people in my class that went to college. Mackinac City didn't have a big academic
Now,
background.
was Mackinac City, I imagine, much smaller than it is today?
Same size.
Okay.
There was 20 students in my class.
Okay, yeah.
Which made it interesting to field a football team.
I bet it did.
But it was a great place to grow up.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So you go down to Alma College. Now, what did you get your degree in?
So I got my degree in business.
Okay.
General business.
General business.
Did not have a specialty. And after college, I wasn't an A student. So I like to say I was a great B student. So I didn't get a great job out of college.
Right.
The A students got to go to the big jobs. I was fortunate enough to get a job at a bank in Detroit called Manufacturers Bank of Detroit.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't get into the credit department, but I got a branch job. I started as a teller.
Interesting.
In a branch, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And I worked my way up through the branch management program to become a branch manager, and then really developed a career in banking. At the same time, to be in the credit department, you needed an MBA. So I said, well, let's get an MBA. So again, taking advantage of the tuition refund program, didn't have any money, but the tuition refund program, I got my MBA. But make that story a little longer. Before I got my MBA, I was admitted to the credit department. So I didn't need an MBA. And I was actually gonna drop that.
Okay.
But I was encouraged by my friends to finish it up. I only had a couple more classes to go.
Sounds like you had some good friends.
Right. So I'm having a great time. I'm in the private banking department. I'm dealing with Lee Iacocca, the Fords. I'm dealing with a lot of the athletes.
So just some little names.
Yeah, just little,
just little ones.
Just and having a great time.
Yeah.
And I'm learning the business, but I got a little bored because one day a customer called me on a Friday. This is before emails and cell phones, and said that they needed a $2 million loan by Monday. So back then, that was very difficult to put together. So I put the loan together. Monday, we closed the loan. The customer was very happy. On Tuesday, the customer came in and said, I flipped the company. I'm paying you back. I made a lot of money on the deal. I'm paying you back your loan. Now, you charged me a $10,000 fee.
Right.
And I don't think that's fair because you put a lot of effort into this. I made a lot of money. I'm going to give you a $25,000 extra fee. Now, when you're making less than $100,000 and you make $35,000 over the weekend for your employer, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sitting in the loan committee on Wednesday, and I'm ready for the great
for the pat on the back. Absolutely.
And my the division head went around the room every loan meeting and said, "Tell me something that happened to you." So I tell the story. And at the end of my story, the division head said, you missed an opportunity. We have a contest to see how many checking accounts you open, and you didn't open a checking account for that person. So that was my, if I can make $35,000 for the bank and not be appreciated, maybe I can make $35,000 for myself. Mm-hmm. So I started looking for a job, or looking for something else. And I decided I was going to buy a company because that's where you want to be your own boss.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to buy a company. Now, there's only one problem is I don't have any money, but your students understand that you can put things together.
Absolutely.
So I go out and I pitch one of my customers on an idea. So I had an idea and I pitched the customer on the idea. And the customer said, "That's a great idea. I'm not going to do it, but I didn't know you were an entrepreneur, and I'm setting up a bank. Why don't you come run the bank?"
Did you say, "I'm not an entrepreneur, but I am now"?
I am now. I was 34 years old.
Yeah.
So I was offered the job as to help set up a bank. Now, I'm only 34, and there's some old people in this room. Some are even in their 40s. And the person who's putting the bank together said, "Well, one of you has to be, you're all equal, but one of you has to be the CEO. Dave, you got your MBA, you're the CEO."
You knew that was going to pay off. That was going to come back to you.
So I'm talking to students. Finish your degree. You don't know. 5-10 years from now, somebody might appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, what was take me back just for a second to fill in one little gap. What was the break between when you finished your undergrad and started your MBA?
That was right away.
Oh, it was right away. Okay.
Right away.
Okay.
But I was working on my MBA for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
I was not
Yeah.
that was part-time at night.
Yeah. No, that's that's incredible. So it's funny going back to the bank side of it, being a teller. You always hear that tellers are the happiest employees of anyone. Yeah. And there's often stats that come out and say that they're the happiest people in any job, which is fantastic. So it's fun to hear that you enjoyed it as much as you did. Right. And then to move quickly. Now you get into the credit department, and then you discover you don't need what it is you've already put all this time into, but you got some good friends. Right. So you got some smart friends that told you to go in, finish it up. It comes back later. Now, when you talk to some of these younger students who are maybe going through that same process and you tell them, 5-10 years from now, what's some of the responses you get from that? Because I know that I also get to teach a lot, and I hear from a lot of students like, this is just, it's really hard. I gotta get through this. I already have a job. Do I need to do this? Right. What's some of the response that you are getting from students when you talk to them about that idea?
Well, first of all, you are getting an education. You are learning something, even if you don't know it. And I could tell you 10 stories about accounting that I did not pay attention to in accounting. And then 20 years later, you're buying a bank and you have to understand all these accounting principles, and it just comes back to you.
Yeah.
It just comes back to you. Secondly, it's the friends you meet when you're going through the process.
The networking is incredible.
It is. You have to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And then it's long term. It's people want to see something on your resume. Right. You don't know what it is.
Yep.
It might be this.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And so now, you look to buy a company. Now, a lot of people in that situation would go, all right, well, I'm going to do whatever it is, right? They get tired of making money for somebody else. They want to do it. But what in your background made you go, now I'm going to buy a company? Because that's not everybody's initial reaction. So what do you think drove you to make that decision?
So when you're working for a large company, you can predict your increases within a percent or two. If you have a really good year, a really good year, you get 5%. A mediocre year, you get 4.5%, and a really bad year, you get 4%.
Right.
Okay. So, but when you're in the banking business, you're banking people that are making a lot of money and doing a lot of fun things. You get to see them. You get to see what they're doing. And so I think, well, if they could do it, I can do it. And so that was the entrepreneurial spirit. Now, I can go back further and tell you when I really got that spirit.
Yeah, let's hear it.
When I'm 14 years old.
Okay.
I had 3 jobs. This Mackinac City,
okay.
3 jobs. In the morning, I'd go into a motel, and I was the bed stripper. I was the first one in before the maids got in. I'd get all the stuff out. I'd say I learned a lot about life as a 14-year-old boy going into these motel rooms. Mm-hmm. In the evening, I worked as a busboy at Cunningham's restaurant in Mackinac City, and I also learned a lot. I never send anything back to the kitchen. Okay, I don't care how bad it is. I will never send anything back to the kitchen. At lunch, I was delivering the Petoskey News Review. That year, there was a murder in Cross Village, Michigan. A family from right down here in Huntington Woods, or Beverly Hills, Michigan, was murdered execution style. That was before internet.
Right.
That year, the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News went on strike. There was only one paper, the Petoskey News Review, and I had it.
Nice.
The truck would back up to my house at 11 o'clock, and it would just dump every paper I could take off there, stacked in my garage. I would get on my bike. I would go to the first stand, and I would stack up the papers forget the newsstand. I would just stack them. And I had a can there on the side, and I put a rock on the papers. And I'd go home and fill out the second back and forth. And when I got done with my route, I'd go back to the first stand, empty the can of money, refill the papers, and go around. I think that summer I made more money than my father.
Really? So
that was the entrepreneurship that started. I said,
so what? But all right. So I have to go back even further than that, because something makes a 14-year-old go, I want 3 jobs. I want all of it. What puts you in that position? Because I mean, and obviously it's a different time, but 14-year-olds today are not. You can't get them to get a job, let alone 3. So what puts you in that mindset at 14 years old?
Well, that's a little bit about the luck of your upbringing. When you're in Mackinac City and you turn 14 years old, the first thing you do is run down to the city hall and get your work permit.
Okay.
Everybody did it. I never played Little League baseball, but everybody's working. Mm-hmm. I never took a day off because there's nobody to play with because everybody was working. So, that really got, that's the the environment and your location. My kids, I basically forced them to get a job because that's what we do. But they wanted to be at the club, they wanted to swim, they wanted tennis, and so forth.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So all right. So now fast forward a little bit, and you talk about your kids. So what of that from you did they pick up? Were they the same way growing up? Did they start picking up some of the entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, they're both very much entrepreneurs.
Nice.
Very much entrepreneurs. My son's was in private equity, went to Blackstone out of college, and but again, he had the same thing. 3 years later, he goes, I want to do my own thing. So he's actually running a company now that is fairly successful. And my daughter is an influencer.
Okay.
She was working at a college. She went to Kate Spade.
Okay.
Sell purses.
Yep.
She was the number one salesperson in Kate Spade when she was 24 years old. And I said to her, that's very good. You have a great job. What's your career?
Right.
What are you going to do when you're 28?
Right.
And so she took that opportunity to study photography and became a photographer and an influencer. So
that's incredible.
500,000 followers.
Yeah.
And if you like
jobs that didn't exist 5-10 years ago, and now they're part of our everyday life that we talk about. Yeah. So that's great. It's great that they followed you up. Okay, so now you become president, or they become the CEO because you had an MBA. Yeah. And what happens from that point?
Okay, so we're setting up a bank.
Okay.
How do you set up a bank? There is no class at Walsh College on how do you set up a bank 101. There's not.
I would challenge you to find one anywhere.
Okay. So I have to set up a bank. And so, I had, attorneys that helped, and I had, some really good advisors. And, we set up this bank. It was in 1989. 1989, there was a savings and loan crisis. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting there ready to open the bank, and the FDIC won't give us permission. So it's costing us, $10,000 a month just to sit here. And so I called them up and said, could you move us along here? We're wasting a lot of money. Son, we're losing $10 billion a day. We don't have time for you.
Right.
But we got through that. We opened the bank, and we started with 6 employees.
Okay.
I'd never been a CEO before, but I had 6 employees, and we have some of the issues with employees that happen all the time.
Right.
Every company, you have to be able to handle that. My first issue was a day before the bank is open. I'm pulling in, and I can see my branch manager, one of my 6 employees, walking across the parking lot with her box full of her stuff. Oh. No. I said, now this is not a good sign.
It's not something you want to see.
So, okay, I go into the bank, and there on my desk is a note from her saying that there's been a lot of accusations made against her, and some of them are not true. Not all of them. Some of them are not true, and she thought it'd be best if she left the bank.
Yeah.
So you have those issues all the time.
Now, I would argue that you may say that you had never been a CEO before, but with your background, you very much had a lot of the same capabilities, and you had come up with owning your own business in many ways, and maybe not dealing necessarily with employees in a direct route, but you were dealing with customers, and you understood how relationships had to work, and you understood that piece of it. So I would imagine you brought a lot of that stuff into that first CEO role.
Right. Yeah. Dealing with customers is, especially customers that can choose any product or service or any bank that they want to deal with, or any banker they want to deal with. Right. My philosophy was, I want you to call me.
Yeah.
Whatever your question is, whatever your problem is in the banking, call me and I'll answer it for you. Then I developed another philosophy. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to solve your problem. A big difference.
Yeah, big difference.
You call me. You want to get a loan on a vacant piece of property. We don't do vacant property loans.
Right.
Okay. But you really want the money. So why don't we give a home equity loan, give you a personal loan, do this and do that, and you can buy the property. Right.
But that's the difference between transactional and relational customers, because to anybody else, they may just go, yeah, we don't do that, you're out. Right. And that's a transactional relationship. But if you are relationship-based banking, then you do exactly what you're talking about, right, which comes in again from that customer experience side of it. Right. So it's incredible. It's incredible that you would know just intuitively to bring in that side of it and to change the way the banking was done. Right. What else besides the relationship style banking? What other things were you bringing in that were maybe shaking up the industry a little bit?
So we called ourselves the private bank. We were the Bank of Bloomfield Hills, the private bank. Mm-hmm. At the height, I had 100 employees, and we had 1,000 customers. Okay?
So from 6 employees,
we went to 100 employees.
To 100.
With 1,000 customers, and you do the student-teacher ratio type thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one per every 10 customers.
Yeah.
And that was a great ratio of taking care of customers. And we would do whatever it took for those customers. And some of my high-name customers, well-known, followed me over.
Yeah.
And so they would come over. So you be in our lobby and you could see Isaiah Thomas or
yeah, because they trusted you.
And we would, be able to handle their unique needs.
Absolutely. So you have the private bank up until when?
Okay, so officially it was called the Bank of Bloomfield Hills.
Okay.
I set up another bank in Rochester, right on Main and Rochester Road, called the Bank of Rochester. And setting up a third bank in Grosse Pointe called
the Bank of Grosse Pointe.
However, every time you set up a bank, everybody's charging you separate fees.
Right.
You have separate audits, separate fees, separate. And I said, well, wait a minute, this is becoming too much work. Why don't we combine them and just have one bank? Well, what name are you going to pick, right? Because people in Bloomfield didn't want a bank in Rochester, didn't want a bank in Grosse Pointe,
right?
So the name was the Bank of Bloomfield Hills, the private bank. So I said, why don't we just call ourselves the private bank? The FDIC says you have to have your name on the door. It doesn't say it has to be the biggest name. So we didn't even tell anybody. We just changed the name.
Yeah.
So we're now the private bank, but everybody still calls us the Bank of Bloomfield Hills.
Well, and everybody's heard of a DBA.
Right.
Just doing business as. It's fine.
Now, what happened was very fortuitous. There's a bank in Chicago called the Private Bank.
Yeah.
They used 2 words, the private bank. We had the private bank. But our mail got crossed up, and we got confused. And so I developed a relationship with them. It's kind of fun. Chicago, over here. When it came time to sell the bank, I called them. We sold the bank. So now we sold the bank, and nobody knew we sold the bank.
No, because you wouldn't have to. You had the same name.
So that was in 2005.
Okay.
You mentioned what a good time to sell a bank.
Uh-huh.
What a good time to sell a bank in Michigan in 2005. And timing is everything.
Absolutely.
You hear that? But we sold the bank for 3.5 times book, which is the largest multiple of any bank ever being sold in Michigan at the time. And it worked out very nicely.
Yeah. And I would imagine if you would have held on for even 3 more years, it would not have been the same.
It would not have been the same.
So you sell that.
So I saw that. It was a merger made in heaven.
Yeah.
They gave me a lot of cash to invest into the market. So I hired another 100 people. We grew the bank. We were really doing very, very well. It was fun. I'm on the board of a public company in Chicago. I get to go to Chicago and learn about public companies. In 2007, the private bank decided there was a lot of mergers going on in a bank called LaSalle Bank, which was a big presence in Chicago and Michigan, got bought by Bank of America. All the LaSalle people get laid off. Now, they're friends with all the people in Chicago.
Right.
So the board in Chicago decides to not become a private bank, to go into commercial bank, and they hired 100 of the senior LaSalle people.
Nice.
Not nice for us because we were the king of the bank. And I woke up the next day and I found that I was no longer on the executive committee. I was So a little upset.
Yeah.
But as anything in life, you can't be upset for very long.
No.
So what they did was they gave me a new contract. And the new contract did not have a non-compete. Now, today there was just a ruling by the
about non-compete last night. We were just talking about it this morning.
Right. But so they eliminated my non-compete. So I took advantage of that and said, well, if we could do it once, we could do it twice. So I teamed up with one of my best friends and customers. His name was Gary Torgo. We bought a bank in Michigan.
Okay.
It was the smallest bank in the country.
It's a good place to start.
It had $700,000 of deposits.
Okay.
It was a brand new bank. And we were then going to build that bank to be another private bank. I was bringing over about $1 million a day in business. So the bank is growing exponentially. I mean, cranes, you can look it up in 2009. I still have the article where Dave Provost is going to do it again. Well, the FDIC read the article. And I didn't know it, but there was an agreement that this bank had with the FDIC that they wouldn't grow past a certain level. And I had already grown
You'd already done it.
I had already grown past that. So they came in and gave me what's called a cease and desist. It's as bad as you think it is.
Yep.
Stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. You have to file a new business plan. So I already had the employees, and so we filed a new business plan. I said, okay, I want to put $50 million of equity into the bank, and we're going to grow it to $500 million. Submitted a business plan. It's good for Michigan. I don't know, it's 2008. The world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
2000, and the FDIC, after examining it for 3-4 months, said no. Okay, well, what do I need to do?
Right.
We can't tell you. Submit another one.
Jeez.
That's like your English professor saying, I don't like your essay, write another one. What's wrong with it? I can't tell you.
I can't tell you. You have to guess.
So it took us a year and a half to finally agree that we're going to grow the bank to $200 million.
So now you're looking at end of 2009.
Toward the end of 2009.
Okay.
We're going to grow the bank to $200 million. We're going to put $20 million of equity into the bank. And when they agreed to it, they said, and don't ask me for a thing. We never want to see your name again. Don't ask us. So we accept the deal. We go in there. We go around our business. About 3 days later, the FDIC calls. Said, Dave, we have this bank that's failing. It's right down the street from Walsh College area, and could you help us with it? It was a $50 million bank. Now, I'm $100 million at the time.
Right.
And I said, no, it's too small. Too much. I don't want to do that. You have a bank in Port Huron that's $2 billion. I'll take that. And they gave me the same expression that you just did. And I said, no, I'm serious. They said, well, kind of giving me the stiff arm. They said, well, you have to have $200 million of equity to put into the bank. I said, well, if I get the equity, would you let me have the bank? Well, no, but we'll let you bid on the bank. Okay, so now here's one of those stages of life that you have.
Right.
To raise $200 million, it's going to cost me a lot of time and money. And just for the right to bid, it actually cost me $1.5 million. I had to raise the money. I had to put a business plan together. I had to hire attorneys. I had to act like I had bought the bank just to bid on it.
Just to have the opportunity to maybe buy the bank.
Just to have the bid on it. So, but being the entrepreneur, not very many times in people's lives do you have the opportunity to really do something.
Yeah.
So I decided to go ahead with it. And in 1 week, I raised $600 million on the road show. I'd never done a road show, going to Washington or going to New York and Philadelphia and San Francisco. And at the end of the day, I didn't need $600 million. I only needed $400. So I had to cut people off the list.
Stop giving me money.
So I had to go and interview people.
Yeah.
Why should I take your money?
Right.
What a difference in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up picking as my lead investor a gentleman called Wilbur Ross. Okay, Wilbur Ross later became U.S. Secretary of Commerce, but he was the greatest. That was the greatest. Decision I made was to pick him as my lead investor, and he just made sure all the investors behaved. Other investment groups, they fight among themselves.
Right.
Since I had a lead of Wilbur's quality, it worked out very nicely.
Yeah. So, all right. So I have to ask, what does a roadshow like that look like? Because we get a lot of entrepreneurs in here, and obviously it's a little bit different, but what does that roadshow look like?
Okay. So a roadshow is you got 45 minutes to present your case to a investor or an investment company. Usually you have to go to a gatekeeper first, right? So the senior people aren't going to listen to, they get roadshows all the time. So I have 45 minutes to convince a junior analyst that they should refer my deal to the senior analyst. And you just want to explain what you're doing, very concise. You want to say how much money a person can make on this deal, what the upside is and what the downside is, and why they should invest in you as a person.
What is it? So, I mean, that's incredible. And it sounds a lot like the pitch competitions you see and you hear about. Yeah. So, in the most basic terms, it's like Shark Tank, right? You have to go in and you have to do this pitch. Talk to me about what is your presentation, your personality within that presentation? How much weight does that carry?
It's 50%.
Yeah, it's got to be so powerful.
I mean, you watch Shark Tank, and it could be a great idea. And if that person's not presenting right, it's like, why am I doing this? So, but it's also how concise you are with your presentation.
Exactly.
You don't go with all of. So, I will tell you, the first presentation we made was in Baltimore. We're presenting to a nice young gentleman, probably 30 years old. And we thought it went well. And as we're walking out of the room, we turn to him and say, okay, this is our first roadshow. I don't know if you know this, but we have never done this before. What would you tell us to do differently? Mm-hmm. And he said, I will make a suggestion. You're asking for $200 million. They're going to try and give you $1 billion. Don't take it.
Interesting.
So we went out and we're getting on getting back in the car. We go, wow, that was interesting. We really have something, something here.
Right.
But you have 45 minutes. When you're in New York City, you start at 7 in the morning, and there's donuts and so. But you have 45 minutes. At 7:45, your little buzzer goes off. You run downstairs. Your SUV screeches up onto the sidewalk. You pile in. You go to the next one. You have to sign in at the front desk, and you get up there. You're 5 minutes late. Now you only have 40 minutes. You do the same, and you just go on and on and on. Yeah. The hardest thing is to remember what you told because you tell the same story over and over again.
Interesting. So you do this so how many of those presentations do you think you did?
So we would do 8 or 10 in a day. Yeah. And your investment banker sets us up because we don't know who to talk to. Investment banker sets it up, and we just go, as many as you can. We if it's a big investor, they get a one-on-one. Usually at lunch we'll have 10 smaller investors come in, so we'll feed them lunch, maybe go for an hour and a half with 10 of them. And then you go right up to dinner, and then usually you get on a plane, fly into the next city to do the next one.
It's incredible.
And so we did this for a week.
Yeah. So you did 60 of these, 50, 60 of these?
Right.
Man. And how do you think the difference between that very first one and that very last one in that confidence level?
Well, we got pretty good.
Yeah, I bet you did.
And we knew what people were
what they were interested in.
Saying. Now, we didn't have any real experts
Right.
We didn't. My CFO was, a community bank CFO, right? We had myself and my partner Gary Torgo, who really knows the state and the politics of the state. So one time we were asked a very technical accounting question, and because I made a comment, I said, "Well, that's not right, you know." And you're sitting there and nobody's bailing you out. Right? And then all of a sudden, go back to, accounting 101. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, this is, you make the adjustment. But I'd given that same presentation for 40 times and nobody had caught it.
And nobody said anything.
And then finally,
well, and it was still enough that you were able to present in a way where $600 million later, things were going pretty well. And at what point do you find out during those sessions whether they agree or not agree?
No. You never find if they're not going to agree.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Or if you don't want them.
Yeah.
So there's something called management promote. Mm-hmm. Management promote is what the management gets, right? And you can't ask for a lot because they'll nobody wants to invest in somebody who's being really greedy.
Right.
But you got to ask for enough because you want to make it worthwhile.
Right.
And we had one presentation. They spent half the time telling us that our management promote was wrong, that we were not. We were asking for too much,
right. Which meant they were focused on the wrong things.
And so we knew we didn't want them, or we knew they wouldn't participate. After your goal, it's the investment banker's job to call back and say, "What do you think?" Mm-hmm. So it's like buying a house.
Right.
You go in, you don't want to tell the owner that you have the realtor do that. So that's how that process works. Yeah. Now, if you're talking to the junior analyst, what you want to be invited back.
Right.
Okay. So I'll tell the story about Wilbur Ross.
All right.
Great Wilbur Ross. We were nervous that we had an appointment with Wilbur Ross, and so we go in and he's not there. There's just this two analysts that are there. We give the presentation, and we're not to the next appointment, and the phone rings with the investment banker, and they say, "Mr. Ross would like to talk to them. Can you come back tomorrow?" Okay, come back tomorrow. So we go back to the same office, and we're in the lobby, and they say, "Mr. Ross is ready." Right? I'm nervous, Mr. Ross is ready. So we go back into our conference room, and there's I describe it as a 12-inch black and white TV. And it's grainy, and you can hardly see, but there's Mr. Ross on Skype, right? This is Skype, phoning in from Palm Beach. And he asked 10 questions. He's a brilliant guy. Asked 10 questions. He said, "Okay, I'm in for $100 million." Okay, so that was that one we knew right away.
Yeah, no, that's really funny. So talk to me for a minute about in the entrepreneurial space and finding the proper partners. Mm-hmm. So how important is it, and what are some key things that you should look for when you're looking for a partner in your entrepreneurial journey?
So I picked some very, very good ones and picked ones that haven't worked out. The first thing I would say, if it doesn't work out, exit as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Right? Ones that work out are people that have the same values that you do, and really it's like a football team. You just know when you have the right team. Mm-hmm. And some of it is price. I'll give you an example. When we're bidding on this bank in Port Huron, we got to put a bid together. Now, the bid's 10-page document, very complicated, how you bid on it. Mm-hmm. So I go to all the accounting firms. They all have divisions that will help you with the bid. And usually they want $1 million.
Okay.
To help you put a bid together. Okay, well, I don't have that much money, but it's not worth it. Somebody introduced me to somebody who introduced me to a gentleman who had put some bids together, and he was putting a bid together for a bank in South Carolina. The bank wasn't getting approved, and he's what I call sitting on the beach. Mm-hmm. tell you his name. His name is Brad Adams. So he's sitting on the beach. So I called him and said, Brad, I could use some help. I said, how much would you charge me to put a bid together? He says, $25,000.
It's a lot different than $1 million.
So I go, okay. So this gentleman helped me with everything. Helped me with investors. He became, my accounting expert. The whole thing. He would tell investors, basically to get out of here because you're not looking at the right thing. We don't need you. Mm-hmm. The whole thing. Puts the bid together. Now, this is my whole career here. I'm putting the bid together. The bid is due at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
I have put the bid together. I've gotten the board to approve it. I've gotten Mr. Ross to approve it. All the finance people have approved it. This is the bid. Now, we're bidding against one other person, but anyway, this is the bid. At 10 minutes to 11, Brad Adams calls me from South Carolina and says, on line 42, change that number from a 1 to a 2. I said, Brad, I can't do that. It's already been approved. He said, the FDIC doesn't really know what that means. Just change it from a 1 to a 2. You got to trust me. I said, I got to get approval from the board. No, you're just making the bid better. They won't care. If they lose the bid, I'll care, but they don't care. So, okay, you're the CEO. There's a person you've never met in his pajamas in South Carolina that you're paying $25,000 to, and he's done, $100,000 worth of work. Do you change the bid or not?
That becomes you got to really balance your trust level.
Okay, so I changed the bid.
Yeah.
5 years later, when the contract was unwinding with the FDIC, it was an FDIC contract. The contract was unwinding. The FDIC noticed that the number was a 2 rather than a 1. And they owed me another $25 million. Okay. So there's a story about, you talk about partners, partnering up with people that are smart, that you trust, that have the same values that you, they're not going to screw you. And it made $25 million for the bank.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that goes even beyond finding the right partner is so big. And that's such an interesting story too. And it really points out how important it is to, again, align with somebody and know that you're on the same page, you're after the same goals, you're really trying to accomplish the same thing. And then building a trust for somebody. And they have to be able to prove themselves that that you can trust them, and that you, in turn, they can trust you, and you can really build out that partnership. In that same vein, you're talking about a hiring process. And really what that partnership goes beyond. So now you've established that this is going to be a company. In this case, or even in your past cases, you have to hire these people. So even beyond the partners of launching that business, now you need to grow. And now you need to grow that business. What are some things that you're looking for when you are hiring people? And you made the comment about, fill your network with people that are smarter than you. Hire smart people. Right. What does that hiring process go as you say, all right, time to scale up and we got to put the right people in place? What does that process look?
So we always, when we were in this acquisition mode, we always looked to the next level. You can't get to the next level until you have the people that are already in place. So there's a risk there's a risk there. But a couple of things about my philosophy is I want to hire smart people, and then I'm going to let them do what they do.
That is the part that people miss so often.
I'm going to let them do what I'll do. I'll just a quick divergence. We partnered up with a bank where I gave up the CEO title for a little while. So the other CEO was we're looking at an employee benefits program. Mm-hmm. My philosophy on employee benefits program, you come to me and tell me which employee benefit program that we want, because you've done a month's worth of research.
Right.
Well, the other CEO wanted to know every detail on every step of the way. Right. So it drives people crazy. Well, then what do you need me for if you're going to do every step of the way? Right. So the difference in philosophy, You bring in, you give me a presentation of what you think is the best. If I don't like it, I'll tell you. But you do the work, and then I'll 95% of the time take your advice.
Right, because you've spent the time to hire the right people that you can trust to do the research and make the right decisions.
Right. Now there's something else that I've done, and I just suggested this at a work for my son's company. Is I hire the people as consultants.
Okay.
Right? We're not going to get married. Okay, we're going to date for a while. Mm-hmm. You're going to be a consultant, and sometimes people can't do that on the other side. They got to have a full-time commitment, but a lot of times they will. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to hire you for 6 months as a consultant, or 3 months for consultant. Then we'll sit down and see how it goes. And so I've hired a lot of my senior people that way. Is do a project for me. Let's see if see if we should get married.
Interesting. It's a great way to do it, because you also get a little bit of a trial run per se, and So now through your career, now you have found yourself in retirement. Mm-hmm. Fill in that gap right there. So you go through this contract with the FDIC, mm-hmm. then you find yourself into TCF Bank. Okay, so TCF. There was 14 banks between the beginning and the end. The bank was called First Michigan Bank that I had bought. Okay. It actually is a half mile from here. Nice.
The original headquarters.
We're surrounded by good money.
And it worked out great on the road show. I'm from Michigan. I'm for Michigan. We're First Michigan.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we buy the bank in Port Huron. We immediately go from one of the smallest banks in the country to the 6th largest bank in the state.
Okay.
Buying a failed bank was just an incredible experience. So I made the bid, and I didn't hear. You make a bid like on Wednesday, and they tell you by Friday, so that you have a week to get ready, because they're closing banks on Fridays. Okay. So Friday comes, and I get no call from the FDIC. That's not good. Saturday, no call. Monday, no call. So I figured I'd lost the bid.
Right.
Tuesday, one of the competitors had called me and said, "Could I get a job with you?" So that was a good sign. So they had called the competitor and said, "You're not going to get the bid." But they still hadn't called me. Mm-hmm. On Wednesday, still no call. I sent everybody home. Yeah. I am still at my desk, 6 o'clock, and the phone rings. It's the FDIC. And they say, "We just want to confirm your bid." I had no idea what the bid was. I didn't care. I said, "Yes, that's the bid." So they said, "Well, congratulations, you have 47 hours to get ready." So you have 47 hours. You're taking over a bank that's 20 times your size. Mm-hmm. You have to put an employee in every one of their branches. They had 23 branches. I had 30 employees, and I had 47 hours to get ready. And we had to have signs. We had to. I mean, it was just. Yeah. It was incredible. But you want to be with people who love the challenge, right?
So we could do an hour on just that. What happened in that 47 hours?
We had Shelley Matry as my marketing. She had what you call bank in a box.
Yeah.
So she didn't know how many boxes she needed, but she had it, and she got 20 ready.
That's really so. I worked in the finance industry for a while, and I worked in the mortgage industry, and we had a bank in a box, which I have to imagine somehow came from you into that space. That's incredible. I love that.
That was a lot of fun. So the bank closes. They usually shut the bank down at closing. However, word got out that we were coming. And so the FDIC had to close the bank early. Mm-hmm. So they notified the staff that the bank was going to be shut down. As I'm walking into the room, staff is crying, and the bank has failed. It's a community bank. And then they invite me up to the boardroom. So only did this once and never had this experience in all the banks that we bought. I go into the boardroom. It's completely full. There's probably 100 FDIC agents all over the place. And at 6 o'clock, we're 30 seconds before 6 o'clock. And the head person in the room says, okay, quiet, 30 seconds. And the whole room goes quiet. And then they go, 15 seconds. Is Washington ready? Washington's ready. Dallas, are you ready? That's where the FDIC resolution headquarters was. Dallas is ready. The West Branch is ready. East Branch is ready. We got 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 1 second. Shut the bank down, close the website, open our website, immediately transfer 648,300,000 and some thousand, to First Michigan Bank, and they turn to me and say, "Congratulations, it's your bank. Good luck." And that was being in the room with that amount of money being transferred around, and that kind of orchestration by the FDIC. The FDIC's goal is to have it transparent to the customer. They don't want grandma to be worried about her money.
Right.
And so that's the whole goal. Yeah. When I bid on the bank, they said bid on every deposit, not only the insured deposits. You got to take the uninsured deposits. Uninsured deposits.
Right. But your background had showed that you were customer first anyway.
Customer first, yeah.
Yeah. So that makes sense.
So when you put a bid together for a bank from the FDIC, you bid negative.
Okay.
So how much do you want for your house? Right? If you pay me $100,000, I'll take your house from you. Right? It's a negative bid.
Right. Okay.
I'm bidding negative. And so the bigger negative you bid, the better the deal is for you, which you can't bid too much. So anyway, we bid a negative $25 million, $28 million. So they paid us $28 million to take the bank. And then they gave us what's called a loss share, so that if some of the loans went bad, they would participate in
recovery,
in the loss or in the recovery.
Yeah,
we figured we saved them $250 million by paying us that money. So it worked out for them, worked out for us.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. So now you've made that transition. In a very landing on the moon way. It had to feel like a rocket launch to have that countdown. And I would imagine that the energy in that room would have been just incredible.
That was. And then you go, after the bank has been turned over to you, now you go into the next room where your accounting team is. Mm-hmm. Now, I had brought in my old CFO from Chicago, and the CFO I had, and a couple other, a couple other consultants. They are making decisions on the spot that are going to affect the bank for the next 10 years. Which method of depreciation are you going to use? Which accounting method are you going to use? It was, incredible how those decisions affected us for a long period of time.
Yeah, I would imagine. And you had to have been able to foresee what it was going to be like to bring in people that were the top in their field. You're bringing in CFOs from different areas, and now you're going, okay, I need you guys to work together. Yeah. You had to have had the foresight to say, this is going to work. These are the right people to be at this table.
Right. And now trying to recruit those people. So the one conversation I had was with my future president. His name is Tom Schaefer, who a very good friend. He was president of Citizens Bank in Flint, mm-hmm. In the Michigan office, in the southeast of Michigan office there. And we're friends. We had breakfast once a year. And I said to him at one of our interviews, I'd like to have you come work with me. He says, what are you talking about? You're a $70 million bank. I'm at a $10 billion bank. I said, well, let me sign this non-disclosure. Yeah. And he said, I'm in. So it was real fun being able to recruit top talent.
Absolutely.
For for an opportunity.
Well, and that speaks to you as a person. That they trusted you. You had the backing to show that you not only are very capable of this, but that you're the right person to work for. Right. And so that speaks a lot to you.
Well, we made a lot of decisions that really helped the employees. Mm-hmm. So we bought a bank that I bought 4 FDIC failures in a year and a half.
Right.
One of the FDIC failures, the company had self-insured on their medical insurance.
Okay.
Which means they have no medical insurance.
Right.
Okay? They're paying the bills as they come in. And when the bank goes bankrupt, there's no money to pay.
Right.
So employees had submitted claims for 90 days. And there's $500,000 worth of claims that go poof, and the employees get stuck. Mm-hmm. And the FDIC came to me and said, would you consider paying some of this? I said, well, we'll be glad. We'll pay it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So decisions that are good for the employees, I feel, become good for you in the long run.
Absolutely.
Not every time. Some people
but
don't appreciate
doing
it.
the right thing for the right reasons almost always pays off.
Yeah. And it's more fun to do it for the right reasons.
Way more fun. Way more fun.
So we bought 4 failed banks, and then the banking industry, the failures weren't happening as much, but banks were stuck with a lot of debt at a holding company level. There was a screwy rule. You could borrow money at the holding company and count it as debt, but you put it in the bank and it counted as common stock.
Okay.
So companies were borrowing all sorts of money and then putting it into the bank, and then the bank looked good. The holding company looked bad. The FDIC said, okay, enough. You can't pay the holding company a dividend. Mm-hmm. You have to keep the money in the bank, which forced the holding companies into bankruptcy. So I bought 5 banks. It's called a 363 bankruptcy. You bankrupt the holding company. You were the only bidder because nobody wants these banks.
Right.
You were the only bidder at the auction. And it's good to be the only bidder at an auction. If you're the only bidder, it just works out pretty well. So we would buy the bank and bankrupt the holding company. And we did 5 of those, and they were actually more profitable than buying an FDIC bank.
Interesting.
So we bought five banks. Then we started buying what's called open banks. These are banks without any bankruptcy or assistance, and we started buying those banks. We had grown to $7 billion, so we were the fastest growing bank in the country. We've gone from 0 to $7 billion. And then I did a merger with Chemical Bank in Midland.
Yep. Which was in, what year was that?
2016, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I say that one wasn't all too long ago.
2016. So they were a little bigger than us. They were $9 billion. We were $7 billion. Mm-hmm. It was a friend of mine. He had 3 requirements. He had to be the CEO. The headquarters had to be in Midland, Michigan. And the name had to be Chemical, right? Now, I didn't really like the name Chemical, but
But in Midland, it checked out.
and we're going to make $1 billion for our shareholders on this deal. So so we did it. It didn't work out. We missed twice, and the board decided to switch CEOs, and they brought me back. So the first thing I did was I moved the headquarters to Detroit. So I became the CEO, moved the headquarters to Detroit. I'm going to change the name back to Talmer Bank. Talmer Bank is my grandfather, and his name is Talmadge. My partner's name at the bank, his grandfather's name was Merzon, so we took Tal and Mer.
I like it.
Okay, that's Talmer. We put their pictures up on the wall. It's still
cool.
there. These old guys. We have an Orthodox Jewish attorney and a Presbyterian missionary. They would have never seen each other in their day, but here they are on the wall of a bank. But my CFO said, you can't change the name. He said, it will cost us $20 million. The investors aren't going to like it. Our stock price is going to be hit. Just go buy another bank. Right? So I merged with TCF Bank, and I went to that gentleman, and he said, I want TCF to be the name. I want to be the CEO, and I want the headquarters in Minneapolis. And I said, you can have two of the three. So we kept the headquarters in Detroit, and we took the name TCF. During COVID, he wanted to retire, and so I came back in as CEO again.
Just couldn't stay away.
Couldn't
stay away. Right. So I want to move a little bit now into what has happened in the last handful of years as you have started to lean into the philanthropy side of business. Now, it is very clear from your background that you are a customer service person. You are very tied into customer first, your employees really having a great experience as they work for you, and in that you very much lean into the relationship of being a CEO for your employees. I would imagine that is what has led you into, that personality is what has led you into philanthropy in general. Right. So I want to talk a little bit about different things that you're involved with on the philanthropy side, what that looks like, and then we'll get into why you encourage others to get involved. So let's start first with, what are some of the different charities you're involved with? What is your philosophy on philanthropy?
So to really be involved in a space, you need to have some money put aside. So when we did the first transaction, we put $10 million aside. We did the second transaction, we put $20 million aside. We did the third transaction, we put $50 million aside.
Okay.
Now we put this into a donor-advised fund at the Community Foundation of Southeastern Michigan. We put the money in, and then we can suggest who the money is donated to for the life of the fund. So I think it's very important that when you have an event, you dedicate money to charity.
Okay.
It's much easier when you have an event. When there are big checks floating around, you can carve off some money. When I was in Korea, my father's mission was to educate the people in rural Korea.
Okay.
He set up a school, Christian-based school, had 30 employees. He bought a bankrupt school, so I think there's a history there. He started with 30 students. And he would raise money in the United States, which was, I think, $12 a year.
Okay.
By different women's groups and different individuals to sponsor a student. Kind of, you see some of the ads now, but this was before television ads and so forth. So we would write letters. I was in charge of stamping. Okay, I'm 6 years old. I'm stamping. I do have a great stamp collection. But we would do appeals. There are now 3,000 students in that school. So he's taken it from 30 to 3,000. Actually, when he passed away, he wanted to be buried at the school. So I took him back to Korea. That was very exciting because in Korea, when you take care of an orphan, they adopt you as their parents, and they treat their parents much better than we treat our parents.
Yes.
So at his funeral in Korea, there was more people than his funeral in the United States. Education. So I saw the value of that education because those students, from that first 30 students, they became different human beings. And a lot of them became ministers, but a lot became business, people. They were able to support their communities and really make an impact. So rather than giving somebody some money, give them an education.
Yeah.
And so that's part of my philosophy. So I love education. I love helping students at Walsh College and different colleges just get through and get an education.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, so one of the things that we appreciate so much here at Walsh College is when you set up the scholarship with Walsh, it can be used immediately. Talk to me about why that is an important setup when it comes to philanthropy, where you can make that quick of an impact.
So it's the same philosophy I have with hiring and working with my team. I want to hire good people. And I want to hire good people that know what they're doing and can make the right decision. I couldn't tell you one thing about a student in Detroit. You're Walsh knows about these students. They know which ones are going to be, that need the help, and which ones we can make an impact in. So almost all of my gifts are whatever you can use it for. I just did a program called Rack It Up in Detroit. They have racket. They have squash, and they have after kids program for schools.
Okay.
And they said, "Well, what do you want us to do?" I said, "You decide.
Yeah,
you decide." So
which kind of goes back to the theory that you had before of hire smart people and let them do what they do.
Yeah.
And
so I love helping people, and I've been doing this in a smaller degree for 15, 16 years, and we follow the students.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And I'm sitting there, one morning watching Sunday morning show, and they had this episode about somebody going to the South Pole and drilling 1,000 feet down and pulling up ice that's been there for 2 million years. It was our student.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
So anyway.
Yeah. And that's an incredible way to do it. And it's an incredible philosophy in the space of philanthropy. So when you talk to others and you try and get them involved also in philanthropy, what are some of the things, what do those conversations sound like?
So first of all, you're doing this for yourself. That's the first thing. I said, forget what you're really doing this for yourself. This is part of your mission in your life. If you don't have that, don't bother, right? You want to do this to really help, to help people. And if you want to make a difference, this is, make a difference. If you don't want to make a difference, go play golf, right? But if you want to make a difference, pick a charity, pick a function, get passionate about it, get involved in it, get on the board, learn about it, and really help them out.
Yeah.
Have a quick story about a friend of mine who unfortunately passed away when he was 40 years old. He always wanted to rock somebody's world. Now, when you're in the 30s, you don't think about it. I'm going to pick you, and I'm going to change your life.
Right.
So when he fortunately had a heart attack and died, his buddies, 9 of us, we said, well, why don't we do that? So every year we pick a student, give them a full ride, and we want to rock their world. We don't pick the A students. We pick the ones with the stories.
Yeah.
And we've been doing that now for 15 years. Noah was one of those students, and it's great to get 9 people together who don't know each other that much. We had one thing in common, and really work together to change people's lives.
Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. So as we approach the end here, one of the things that I would love to hear from you is, one, your background is phenomenal, and not only just in the things that you've done and the banks that you've purchased and that you've brought up, and all of those things are wonderful. But the thing that I think means the most and carries the most weight is actually just your personality towards all of it. I think that the way that you present not only yourself as a business professional, but as a human and as somebody that can lead people in a way that is the most caring thing in the world, I think is beyond powerful. So with that, what I would love to hear is 1 or 2 things that are advice for either our students who are starting to get ready for graduation and move into the workforce, or maybe some of our alumni that are fresh into the workforce. Mm-hmm. What are some piece of advice that you would love to give to that group of people, or even yourself at that same situation?
Well, the first thing I say is, if you're playing basketball and you're the 12th person on the bench, and the coach calls you, you got to get in there and play. And you got to be ready to play. You have to have you mentally, physically, you have to be ready to play, even though you've never played the entire season. And that's happened to me so many times where I get called to do something that I never expected it. But you got to be ready with however you can prepare yourself, with reading, with grades, with your network. You have to be ready. So that's the one thing. The second thing I always say is, enjoy your job. If you don't enjoy your job, find another one. Find another one quick. When I was a teller, just starting off, I would have a contest with all the other tellers of who could balance first. Or I would have a contest with who could wait on the most customers. Now, I would sometimes take two tellers against me. I mean, I don't want to win. I want to make it a fun game.
Yeah.
And, make it a game. And I'm working in the inner city of Detroit, and I'm having a blast.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get in. And the tellers are having a good time. Everybody's working together. So have a good time doing what you're doing. If not, find something else.
Yeah. Well, David, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this conversation. This is so fun. And I think that there's many of those pieces we could go on for another hour about just individually. I would love to hear another thing about another hour episode on just those 47 hours of bank time with FDIC. I would imagine that's fascinating. So, but I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for what you've done for Walsh College, what you've really helped our students prepare for as they move into the next piece of their career. And I look forward to everything that we have going forward.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.